Hi, I'm Tom Gautreau, a fan and friend of Mike Boivin, a world-class restorer of 1963 to 1967 Corvettes. I wanted to do this video because of a special car that Mike and his wife Colleen had found a few years back looking for a Christmas tree. So this is Mike, Colleen, and Ian. So Colleen and Mike found the car on a Christmas tree hunt, and Ian is Mike's partner in the car restoration projects. And Ian and Mike have a pretty interesting story how they found the car, and maybe Colleen can start it off by taking Mike out to look for a Christmas tree a few years back. Go ahead, Colleen.
Yeah, Mike and I decided after a long discussion that we would have a live Christmas tree. And so we went out looking for Christmas trees. We went to 2 lots, they were both closed. Went to a 3rd lot, they were sold out. We were on our way driving back outside Fort Langley, and we hit a side street, and there was a little hand-done sign that said Christmas trees. And so Mikey turned to the left, we went down to the dead end, went onto this property, past some really questionable trailers, and the guy came out with, I guess, a flat-eared hat on and said, out the back. We started driving to the back, and Mike said, hit the brakes, and he hit the brakes, and I said, what's the matter? And he says, there's a Corvette under that tarp. And I said, you can't go under somebody's stuff under their they had an awning there. And he says, oh yes I can. And he put the thing out of gear, and then he jumped out, and he says, get in the driver's seat, you go look for a Christmas tree. And he went over to the tarp, and I kept going for the Christmas tree. Go ahead, what'd you find?
Well, I walked up to it and looked around because it was a pretty scuzzy place. And I pulled the tarp off, and the car was missing the front end. And it was just full of garbage and cans and whatever. And I pulled the tarp off, and I looked, and it was a split window, and I just about fell over. I couldn't believe it. And so I put the tarp basically back on it and walked around the back, and there was a frame standing by the building in about 7 feet of bushes and miscellaneous parts laying on the ground and stuff. So Colleen at that time decided to come back and see what I was up to, and I said, we need to get this car. And the owner of the property said that there was some renters on the property that were, not your average people, put it this way. And he said they own the car, and maybe they might decide to sell it. So I went and knocked on the door, and this scary, hairy, bearded guy come out and asked me in a very rude way what I really wanted. And I said, what are you going to do with that piece of junk by the barn there? And he says, well, I have to sell it. I need to get it off the property. And I said, well, I'll buy it. So we agreed on a price, and I went home immediately and got the trailer, got my son and a friend to come and help me haul it. And I threw all the junk out and kept all the parts that were in there, including part of the fuel injection unit and some parts that I didn't even know. So I just loaded on the trailer and dealt with it on the way home. On the way home, it was just getting dark, and I got pulled over by a guy with flashing lights, and he came running up. He says, do you want to sell your car? And I said, oh, I just picked it up 15 minutes ago. And he says, I'll give you whatever you want. And I said, no, it's really not for sale. So after I picked up the car, I went to talk to Ian, and I said, Ian, we need to have a look at this, and how about you and I restore this car? I wanted to refurbish the car because 1963 Corvettes are very, very unique. They're the highest collectible car in the Corvette industry. Everybody wants one. They're very hard to find. And they're the first year of the C2 in 1963. I mean, to this day, all Corvette owners wish and dream of owning a 63. Whether they admit it or not, it is a fact. And the value of these cars today will reflect on that. So, but we didn't want to do it just because of the money. We wanted to do it because it's nice to see different generations look at a car that's close to 60 years old, brought back to life the way it was. And Ian and I are more into restoring a car and for people to enjoy, and just to show how these cars came into effect, because in the 60s, muscle cars, and that was it. You know, in muscle cars, if you had a muscle car, you always got the best chick. You always had tons of friends, right? And that's a fact, right? So that's another reason why I wanted to do it, is because of the day and age of the new technology and stuff. It's nice to bring back the car the way that it was. And it's also a pleasure to restore these cars. So, and it's a pleasure to deal with people that have the same vision and the same kind of feeling that I have towards them, right? It's not about owning the car or anything like that. It's just the history of it is really important to me. So anyways, that's what I wanted to say.
And Mike is an artist, and an artist of the highest order. And he loves making beautiful things. It's his relaxation, it's his joy, it's his focus, and I do anything I can to support him in that end. And we're very fortunate to have a man as talented as he is to create beauty like this and to bring people like this together.
You know, that's lucky about a year and a half ago to meet Colleen and Ian, and I had no idea about Mikey's talent. And I was in the car business for 25 years. And a mutual friend of mine, were driving out to Abbotsford to get something fixed in a tractor, and he says, maybe you should have a Corvette, because he has a Corvette. So we started making some phone calls. We got a hold of somebody that knows Mikey really well. He says, oh, there's this person in White Rock that restores Corvettes. So we said, okay. He said, why don't you come by and see him? So we took a drive out, and we walked into Mikey's shop, and we were shocked to see what we saw. And that's how I met Mike and Ian and Colleen, and then found out about the story, because the car's been written up about a couple of years ago. And so that's how I met Colin and Ian and Mikey, and then Mikey will go over and we'll start talking about the car. Okay, Mike, so now you told us how you found the car. How did you finish the car, restore the car with all the parts and condition?
Well, after purchasing the car, you know, we needed to get a front end made by a company in Indiana that would produce the best fiberglass parts with the GM numbers on them. We needed to find hood grills, mirrors, moldings. The car never had no moldings. And all these things are not parts that you can buy across the counter. They have to be found. Window trims on a 63 are 1 year only. Very expensive and very rare and hard to find. The moldings on a split window just on the outside can be up in the range of $20,000 to $30,000 just for the moldings, let alone everything else. This car is very unique. It was missing the fiberglass headlights. Those were only on early 63s. They had to be found. I went through 27 states to find all the parts, which took me, I would say about 1,000 hours of time looking and researching and buying the right parts, making sure they had the right part numbers on them. And a lot of stuff I had to buy used and refurbish them. I had to restore them. And I always tried to restore things to excellent condition. When I restore parts, I restore them like if 5 judges were going to look at this particular part and judge it. So every part on this car was kind of done like that. Hood grills, all the flags and the emblems were all NOS, which means new old stock out of GM packages that had to be found. The mirror, the wiper blades, all those type of things you cannot buy them. You have to find them one piece at a time, which we did. And we just started the process. I started on the frame, found the parts. There was a lot of parts with the frame, but the engine had to be rebuilt. The frame had to be refurbished, right? All the numbers that we put back on the frame, the spray numbers, the stamp numbers from the factory were on the frame, and everything was good with the car. It was a good car to restore. bumpers had to be plated, had to be found, and these are all original parts. These are fiberglass headlights. There's only early 63s had these, and they're very, very difficult to find. 1963 was a very unique car. The hood grills, for instance, that you see on the car, before the car was sold to the public, the hood grills were actually used as a filler because they brought the car on the racetrack for testing. The hood grills were not there, they had vents, but dust got into the vents, so they had to make up a really quick thing to cover it up so they could get the sails going on them. So the engineers came up with the hood grills and covered up the vents to stop that. So that's kind of a neat little story. And those are the types of things that this car is all about. The paint and body on this car, I think was about 20 to 30 coats of hand-rub lacquer on this car, which lacquer came, all 63s and 67 Corvettes were painted in lacquer, not like your base coat waterborne paints as today. Shops can't paint lacquer, they're not allowed to, it's illegal, but as a hobbyist, you paint your own car, which was what we did. Taillights, parkways, all those things, all came out of GM boxes, and a lot of work, as we go around the car here, is that okay? As we go around the car, you can see that these are original reproduction tires. That's what the car would have been ordered with. And the knockoff wheels were an option. And not very many cars had an option in '63 because after the first 100 cars or so, they had to discontinue it because they put the cars finished that were ordered with knockoff wheels onto the lot, and all the tires went flat because the castings on the wheels had air bubbles in them and they all leaked. So they decided that they would do that through the dealer, and they dealt with the manufacturer, which was Kelsey Hayes, and they reproduced the wheels and you could order them across the counter. That's why there's no reference to knockoff wheels on any 63, except for maybe some of the very early ones. But that's another segment of the story. So as we go around the car, we've got hood grills. All the parts were all stainless steel. All the emblems were state-of-the-art, 1 year only. The rocker panels were very also unique, 1 year only. Same with the early 63s had elongated base mirror and had a little bow tie in there. All the doors have a raised pad on the rock, as compared to like 65 to 67, they didn't have that, right? And these were just, to make the car look like a tanker truck. They had vents there, and antenna was manual, with power, and I can't tell you enough about the car so far. We'll just keep on going.
Maybe mention a little bit the documentation after you bought the car.
Yeah.
That you found.
Yeah. So after I bought the car, I did some research on it, and we were able to find the original paperwork on the car, where it came from, and so we ended up with the original paperwork with the car that was ordered, with all the factory options and stuff, and we were lucky to get all that paperwork, and it comes with the car. So original paperwork with 63s are also very rare, right? And so it was kind of nice to find that. And it came with the paperwork, the window sticker, the shipping documents from the dealer back in 1963, showing all the rate colors and everything that came with the car.
Okay, Mike, I know you're excited about everything in this car, but I know you're super excited about the engine. So maybe if you could explain the engine.
Yeah, let's open that puppy up.
Well, now we're at a pretty exciting part, because I think this is Mikey's, one of his favorite parts of restoring cars, is the engine. So maybe Mikey can tell us all about this motor.
Okay, so what we have here was an optional L84 engine, which was a fuel-injected coupe. That was the one that was the highest priced option, other than the Z06 package, but we'll talk about that later. But this fuel injection unit, as you can see, was the first year for Rochester fuel injection. It put out 350 horsepower, 360 horsepower, sorry. And it came with the aluminum valve covers and, you know, the little chrome dress up, the ignition shielding if you had a radio. This car came equipped with power brakes, and you couldn't get power steering in a fuel injected car. So this is no power steering. It was made for going on the road and having a little fun with it. It had a very unique air cleaner system, which came from the front. Air came in through, went through the fuel injection unit, had its air, and that's how it ran the engine. The water pump, the fan blade, all these hoses, right down to the battery, were all replaced with a lot of the parts were new old stock parts, and a lot of the parts we had to find and restore, like alternators with the correct dates on them, hoses with the correct logos. Basically, every little detail, we went through the car pretty intensively. Under the hood, you notice that under the hood and on the firewall, it's all semi-gloss black. These 4 little alignment blocks here were in early '63 only. They put that in because when the car was on the track, they were concerned about the hood rattling and shaking. So the engineers decided to start off with 4 alignment blocks with 4 clips to hold them. Later on through the year, they went through 2 of them, and then after that, they just discarded them. Near the end of the year, they didn't put them on anymore because they found it really wasn't making that big of a difference. But it's kind of very neat to see that the 4 alignment blocks are still on the hood and, you know, all restored back to factory. Other than that, it's a very, very high performance engine. Sounds wonderful. The tachometer was a tach drive distributor. The actual tachometer turned the fuel pump on the injection unit, and that's how it's got its flow for the power and stuff. Power brakes was a very unique option. Not a lot of cars had power brakes. I think about 3,700 out of the 21,000 that were built, but you know, that's a pretty rare option too. So it came with big 2.5-inch exhaust manifolds and exhausts to let a lot of the combustion out. But other than that, it's a sweet little engine. Radiator was all aluminum, first year only for keeping it cool. And as you can see in the engine compartment, everything here is restored back to the way the factory would have done it. And that's basically what I have to say. It's, you know, it's all there. Okay, I'm just going to go over a few things in the car that might interest some of you folks out there. First of all, I mentioned the power brakes and the special master cylinder. The little bolt on the top was only on the power brake car. They changed it to a bolt. It used to be a little thumb screw, because when they closed the hood, it would have hit and make a mark in the hood. The air cleaner, very unique again, hooks up to the fuel injection unit for air. All the hoses and stuff have all got their correct GM numbers and stuff. Alternator are all correctly date coded. In other words, all the parts that they decided to do, they decided to date code a lot of the parts. Engine suffix numbers, date codes when everything was built. Radiators were stamped with the right date, the part number, matched the expansion tank, you know, as you can see right here. Special straps on all the rad hoses, everything. It was a very, very well thought of, well designed engine. Zora Duntoff and Bill Mitchell, this was their baby, and I think they really did a fantastic job. A little tougher of a job to us to redo it, you know, 55 years later, because we didn't have the parts they did, but you know, everything is doable if you put your heart to it. And other than that, you know, I just hope you guys enjoy this. It's quite something to see, right? Anyways, let's go on with other aspects of the car. Okay, so here we are on the back of the vehicle, And I just want to point out a few little things that makes this car very iconic and very sought after. So this is the split window, and these were the trims that I was talking about. These are very, very rare, very hard to find. This car is actually a tinted glass car, and the gas cap was unique. They had an early gas cap and a late one. And this one here, being an early car, had a little roller wheel in it. And after that, they changed it to a snap. So that's another thing that people look at, see if it's an early or a late car, that type of stuff. The tail lights were unique. Only a few of them came with backup lights. One of the lenses would have been clear with backup lights, but that didn't come till about maybe March in 1963. So they were later you could get. I think there was only like 200 cars that came with backup lights. The license light is jammed underneath the license bezel here that you can't see. So very pretty to look at from the back and stuff. But that's what makes this car very iconic is the split window. And back, in fact, there was a lot of negative when it first came out. They actually made a kit where they would cut the split window out in 1964 to make it look like a 64, and you could buy the windshield or the rear window and the moldings for 64. So I'm really sad to hear that some of the folks actually cut their split windows out because they're probably cringing today thinking about what they've done. So, and also being a part of the NCRS for like the last 30 years since it started, I've been involved with the NCRS, which is National Corvette Restore Society. We try to make these cars back the way they used to, like, original. These days there's Western mods and that type of stuff, which is great. I have nothing against them, but it's nice to have a nice original car put back together the way it used to be and for people to enjoy, right? And that's basically what my dream is to make them better and people to enjoy.
And I actually owned a 63 Corvette when I was 16 years old, not condition of this car, but a lot less money back then too. And when I saw this car the first time I walked into Mikey's shop, a year and a half ago, which I was mentioning earlier, I actually couldn't believe that I actually walked into a car with this condition. I was in the car business for 25 years, so I'm fairly knowledgeable in cars, so it was pretty exciting. And then to meet Ian and Mike as a partnership and know there's, like I said earlier, Mikey is world class at what he does. I was very fortunate to meet him and know him and be able to get one of his cars. So that's it.
So let's have a look at the interior here. So in 1963, I think they all done themselves. I thought they did. They tried to make it look kind of like an airplane cockpit, with the nice gauges. Now 63 gauges are a 1 year only thing. They have silver cones. They have a wonderful plexiglass glove box door that is easy, very easy, beautiful console. Also in 1963, it was a very rare option to get saddle interior. You could only get saddle in 1963 in leather. There was no other car in 63 other than saddle tan that you could get, So this was a very, very fortunate car to get because it did come with a leather tan interior, which makes it even more rare. So it has a Wunderbar radio in it, which is just AM only, right? So if you want an FM station, you were out of luck because you only had an AM radio. And it was a fairly expensive option then. And then later on through the years, I would say about maybe February, you could get the AM FM radio rather than the Wunderbar, but you could still order the Wunderbar radio. And the Wunderbar radios is that you push the signal bucket button, and it would find the strongest AM station and lock on it, and you got to hear the nice 60s music. So in the interior, this car is also a power window car, which is a nice little option, and it's a 4-speed. But you know, when you look at the photographs of, you know, on the tube there, you're gonna see all these nice little odds and sods and that look like little pieces of jewelry, right? So, like I say, my wife's got a jewelry box and so do I, but it's in a car. So, other than that, I think that's pretty good. So we'll just, if you got any questions, Tom, that you want to find out, that you want to ask about it?
Well, Mikey, I think, as you mentioned earlier, it took me 1.5 years to finally buy the car because I asked you 1.5 years, maybe 2.5 years of questions before I bought it. So like I said, I'm very fortunate to even be able to buy it because Ian and Mike could have sold this car to multiple different people, but we might have got a little lucky too because it was COVID. So if this car was had the accessibility to get to the US, I'm sure it would have sold very quickly. Anyhow.
So anyways, I just want to let you know too now, I don't own this car anymore, and it's kind of still brings tears to my eyes when I come back and look at it. But I've been told that I can come and look at it and drool on it all what I want. But my partner and I were lucky enough to acquire an iconic silver on red Z06 that we're going to start a full restoration on very shortly here. And maybe we'll do another one of these so you guys can enjoy that car too. Just a couple of notes I wanted to mention. The interior looks pretty snappy when you look at it, but those parts are reproduction parts. And the top reproduction company in my eyes, which I've been dealing with for probably 30 years, is Alnock Interiors. And they're the only company that actually made an interior that is NCRS correct and accepted by the National Corvette Restorer Society. So you can imagine if we found an NOS seat covers in a box that were 50 years old, I think if you said it, they wouldn't last very long. So a lot of the interior parts, like carpet, leather seat covers, and door panels and stuff, they've been reproduced by Alnock. But all the knobs and the steering wheels and columns and all that stuff, that's all original parts that are restored. Another thing I want to note is that I've been restoring these cars since I've been 19 years old, and I've been doing this for close to 50 years. And I've done actually 14 frame-off total restorations. My partner and I own a beautiful 67 big block coupe that we've restored. I've restored a 65. I've restored 463s. So, you know, as I've built them, the more you restore, the better you get at it, right? And even myself, I'm the first one to say that every time I start one, there's always something new that I find, and that's the beauty of this. It's just no end to it. It's a labor of love. You know, restoring these cars is probably the most relaxing thing that I've had in my life. And also, a car like this can't be done by myself. You need a good body man. You need an awesome painter. You need a good engine rebuilder. As far as restoring the parts and all the chassis work, I've pretty well done that myself. But you still have to take the bull by the horns and say, no, this is how I want it done. And like I said, every part is done till like it's being judged, every little part. So, but after 14 cars, you get better and better at it. So, like in the future, we hope to see this car again. And this spring will be, I think there's something on YouTube in October. We're doing the red, white, and blue, 3 split windows in a big car show here in Vancouver. And the buzz is out that there's going to be a display of the red, white, and blue, all split windows. And this is going to be the blue one. And we have a beautiful Z06 that I'm building right now for a customer. And we also have a beautiful red one that we're going to put in the show. So just keep your eyes open on YouTube because we've all already been approached and it will be on YouTube. And we're probably going to get a lot of hits because you don't see 3 split windows together very often, you know, especially in a car show that are all state of the art, especially one being a true Z06. So it's going to be a real treat to see fuel-injected coupe, the Z06 and a 340 horse all together. So anyways, that's good.
So-
Yeah.
To conclude, Mike, so roughly how many hours do you think total between finding parts
This
and all the work?
this car took me, not counting looking for the parts, 3,500 hours,
Wow.
right? Found the car in December 2015, started the restoration in June of 2016, right? The bodywork was painted August 2017, and 2017. And then in 2018, it went as a group. The chassis and the body went separately in a car show for people to look at. It got quite a bit of excitement from people then. And then the car was finished. When we showed the car in the show in I think 2019, before COVID, a lot of people didn't believe it was the same car, but it was. But anyways, I'm just glad that you guys hopefully have enjoyed this, and I'm sure you're waiting to see more.
Yeah. So anyhow, that's great. So I actually had to twist Mike's arm to do this. I thought it'd be fun to document the car. It's a great car. It's a good story. The Christmas tree part was very exciting. I'm glad Mike did this. And now there's apparently, I don't think it's much of a rumor, but next year's Batman movie has an original 63 Corvette split one. Not a car modified, but original car in the Batman movie next year. So that'll be fun. Hopefully I'll create some more action in the press for the car. Anyhow, Mike, thanks very much. This was super exciting. I'm glad you did this, and I'm so lucky you own the car. And
Thank you.
Thanks.